we understand what community needs are, especially vulnerable communities. And when we say community, we actually don't mean every community. We were brought in 2020 specifically to address challenges of folks that are disproportionately experiencing police violence. So we mean Black people, brown people, people with disabilities, people who are most likely to encounter police. So with me here today, I have Yemi Adesanya, who's our VP of JEDI, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about our company. And we also have AJ Angus, who was a former Axon employee. He can tell you about himself, and now is a consultant. So we're going to get started. I'll hand it over to AJ.
Yeah, so just introducing myself.
And over to Yemi, my bad.
Just introducing myself, AJ Angus, Product and Analytics Consultant, and so I'll be helping everybody go through the activity that we have prepared. It requires audience intervention, so get your phones ready for later, and then Yemi will introduce himself as well.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, come on, people. Good afternoon, everyone. Much better. Great. Yemi Adesanya, thank you, Regina. Thank you, AJ. I'm going to keep this, I was told 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm going to try to stick to 3 to 4 minutes, okay, y'all? But before we get started, I have a quick, what's the word? Think of it like a exercise or opportunity to win some money, right? So in this envelope, I have $100. I promise you it's in there. It's not fake. Want to see it? Because you guys don't believe me. Let's see if we can find it. You believe me? Thank you. All right.
We believe you, Yemi.
Good. Thank you very much. All right. So here's what I want to do. Do you mind hitting the next slide? So I want to go over 3 slides that talks quickly about Axon. Wait. Yeah. Okay. Good. And so there's this number. I'm going to give you a number, and this number represents something very significant. Okay. In the U.S., right? It's a statistic, and anyone who could guess that number will get this envelope. So to raise your hand, I call on you and tell me what. Don't yell it. Just be like, and then I'll be like, and then you. Then I'd be like, and then we do that. Okay. All right. The number is, write this down, is 1201. It's 1,201. 1,200, Axon folks, please, no. Okay, 1,201 is the number. If you can tell me what this number represents in the US as a statistic, okay? And I'm gonna give you some clues as we go along, and hopefully you can figure it out. Just raise your hand. I call on you, tell me what it is, and I give you the envelope. Deal? Deal. Raise your hand. Okay, tell me. No, good try, but no, thank you. That was the example of how it works. Okay, next slide. Axon, so what do we do, right? So here's our 3 pillars really, right? Protect life, capture truth, accelerate justice. And we do this by a number of ways, and you're gonna learn about one of the ways we do it today. We do this by creating certain products, right? So next slide. And so our moonshot goal is based off of really this number. That's another hint, okay? Another hint. And our moonshot goal is set, and I don't want to say what it is yet because it'll really give it away. So anyone want to give a shot real quick? Any hands to guess the 1201? You need more, okay. Here's another hint. George Floyd, another hint, 2002. All right, in the back, okay. Police brutality. I need you to be more specific, so. No, close. God darn it. Could you say that again one more time? Well, I don't want to say injustice, right? The number, 1201 is, round of applause, by the way. Woo. Close enough. 1201. So 1201, the number 1201 represents the number of deaths by bullets between police officers and civilians in the US in 2022, okay? And so when you think about Action's moonshot goal, which is a good time to hit next, our goal is to reduce gun-related deaths, that number, by 50% over the next 10 years. And so to do that, next slide, we create certain products, tasers, body-worn cameras, and the solutions are supported and provided to make sure that the data that we capture on the body-worn cameras are safe, untampered with. Those are used to help police officers in the line of duty, live. It's also used in court of law, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, I'm gonna pause. AJ's gonna take over. He's gonna talk a little bit more about the case study with regards to one of our products.
All right, thanks, Yemi. 1201, somebody got some money today. That's good. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about Axon and you saw some of the products and services that it offers, we're going to go a little bit deeper on one of those products. You probably heard of it, called the Taser, and the next generation Taser called Taser 10. Regina, if you could hit the next slide for me. Oh. So if you look at the history of law enforcement, there's different options that are out there in order to subdue threats. And you can see, I know a lot of people know math here pretty well. We have effectiveness on the x-axis, and we have the injury rate. And you can see that previous spectrum from pepper spray to physical force, batons, and then bullets. And tasers were introduced in 1993, again trying to change the trajectory of that line. Have a highly effective weapon that reduces that injury rate. Doesn't bring it to zero, but reduces that injury rate. And so all the innovations since 1993 have been toward that same goal, toward that moonshot goal that Yemi was talking about, of reducing the need for force in all the communities in which we live. So we're going to go to a short video. Let me cue it up right here to tell you a little bit more about the Taser. Let's hope the audio works.
When we set out to develop our next Taser energy weapon, we didn't want to create a weapon that was simply a step above our last model. We set out to create a less lethal weapon that can be trusted to immediately stop threats in more situations than ever before. Taser 10 is that weapon and begins a new era in less lethal technology. Like previous Taser energy weapons, Taser 10 is designed to induce neuromuscular incapacitation, or NMI. Put simply, it temporarily reduces a person's ability to perform voluntary movement. The Taser 10 is designed to give officers more time and space to safely assess and stop a threat with an increased range of up to 45 feet. That's nearly double the distance of our legacy Taser energy weapons. The Taser 10 features more opportunities to stop a threat, with 10 probes, which decreases the likelihood of escalation to lethal force. Our legacy Taser energy weapons are limited to only 1 or 2 opportunities. The Taser 10 features more accuracy with single trigger pull with individual probe placement, more effectiveness with any probe adaptive cross-connect, more training opportunities with VR integration, enhancing performance and critical thinking skills to promote mutually beneficial outcomes for officers and the communities they protect. And lastly, Taser 10 integrates with Axon's ecosystem of connected products and reporting tools to provide agencies with detailed insights that inform better policy, training, and transparency. Axon is committed to the moonshot goal of cutting gun-related deaths between police and the public by 50% in 10 years. Taser 10 is an energy weapon with vastly increased accuracy and effectiveness and is a key technology that will help us achieve that goal.
All right, so now we know a little bit more about Taser 10. So switching back to the slide, just give me 1 second. I promise I work in tech. Okay, so just summarizing some of those value propositions that you heard. So if you look at on the left side here, there's a previous weapon called the Taser 7, and there's different ways in which that has an ineffective deployment. Someone shot it and it didn't create the outcome that they wanted. And so you can see in the pie chart there, 38% of the time, they just missed. And so there was a lack of accuracy. And so you heard some of the ways in which that accuracy is improving. Another important factor is what you heard, NMI, the ability to make that connection. And in the previous weapons, there was only 1 or 2 opportunities to do that. With the latest Taser 10, there's now 9 opportunities. So it creates more confidence, accuracy, and reliability for people that are using it. So with all this context, I know there's a lot of information. Now we're going to jump into an activity. Again, knowing a little bit about Axon, knowing a little bit about this Taser. Now we're going to apply this product equity, racial equity framework. It's going to need all of your participation so that we can develop all these skills together.
I just want to make sure that folks are drawing that conclusion because I think that's why we're here, right? So when you see this, if you're like, well, how does this relate to the moonshot? The thought process is what happens when there's a miss? What happens if they're too far? Like, what does the officer go to then? And so that's definitely true. But what happens with the taser if, think of all the other scenarios? It's not that cut and dry. There's a million scenarios. And so how can the taser be harmful? And that's what we're here to think about with you.
Yeah. So in the activity today, again, we're going to put you in the shoes. We have a lot of amazing technologists here. Imagine you're on that Taser 10 product team, and the Taser 10 is in this early stage of product development. You heard about the moonshot goal. You see the outcome. What's the outcome that's trying to happen here? I hope that's very clear. And I guess some of the other things to prime this conversation, if you look at any of the police forces that have adopted Taser, you always see they have their handgun on one side and they have the Taser on their right. And the Taser's generally a secondary weapon. With the goal of Taser 10 is trying to make it a primary weapon, so that's the primary option that they have, again, with less injury rate. And so you see some of these different considerations, trying to increase that reliability and accuracy, add different deterrents so people know that they can de-escalate situations so that they don't have to escalate the level of force needed to subdue that threat. And then just more transparency and accountability, like how often is the Taser 10 being used, in what communities, and getting more data and transparency around how it's used in the public. So this is the part where I know you have phones. I know you know how to do the phone thing. You can either scan this QR code or go to slido.com. You see the hashtag there. And we're going to go through, again, this is the same framework that we use at Axon. We're going to go through some questions here. You can participate through the Slido. You can shout out some answers that you have, and then we'll just talk about this together. So let me switch to the Slido, and then we shall go from there. Again, I swear I work in tech. Okay, so the first question is, what historical considerations may make particular communities distrustful of this technology? I know each of you walked into today and you're like, Axon, this Taser thing, you might have had a certain preconceived notion of what that is. What do you think would make people distrustful of this new technology? So what are we seeing here, Regina?
We're seeing excessive force. It's still a weapon for distress. Police brutality, police gangs, the police's ability to actually use it and use it well, I assume. Institutional racism, disproportionate rates of police brutality on minorities, especially African Americans, discrimination, brutal force, police corruption, racism, racial bias, lack of police training. You're on it, you're on it. These are the conversations that we're having every day with these teams. Huge barrier to implementation. It's another excuse for police. Yeah, a lot of lack of training.
Yeah, so we see, some different themes here around the police, the Taser, the racism, and I think, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but again, we're talking here in the context of Axon, but I think in all the products that everybody here is building today, out in the field and out in the market, you have to understand those historical considerations in that specific space, because if you don't understand what customers or people are used to, all those different contextual points, then you're not going to build the right thing that's going to resonate. And I feel like, again, with the Taser 10, we can see it's a very sensitive area. People have a lot of history, coming into it, and so really understanding that context is
I think it's
immensely
important to say too, and not to beat up on Axon at all. I think that people come from different places in different worlds. This would be surprising to some people. They would say, no, Taser's here to protect. It's to keep people from getting shot. And so that may be true, but this is the part that seems like it comes to you so easily. It does not come to them so easily. And that's why also Yemi is here, so that we can have people with more lived experience that can have these conversations.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the second question. Let's keep it moving here. We have a second question that'll open up. And this is where I feel like a lot of engineers in the room really good at doing things like, really good about thinking things like this. what misuse or abuse could a bad actor do with this new taser? Again, you saw some of the different technologies that are employed there. You know, what do you think a bad actor could do? Again, we're trying to find what are those edges. It's trying to add more data, more transparency. It's trying to be more accurate. But what could somebody do in misusing or abusing this technology?
So use it for a different purpose. Non-police can carry it, you should know, but it's a slightly different taser. Sexual assault. You guys are so quick. Find a way to make it seem like it is malfunctioning. So, okay, I understand that. Multiple fires. Use it excessively. Disobey the acceptable distance of use. Increase voltage.
Yeah, so I feel like, again, we're trying to talk about this in the context of Axon and Taser, but again, this applies back to all the products and services that each of us is working on today. Depending on that industry, you really just have to understand, you know, what are the bad actors that are at play, and how can you, again, depending on your role in the team or in the company that you're in, how do you mitigate the risks of those bad actors? Again, the goal here is still clear in trying to create a product, create a weapon that is going to reduce that injury rate and be highly effective. But like with any other product or service, it can be misused in some of these ways that we're seeing here.
You know, AJ, one thing I didn't mention is that our team doesn't do this in a vacuum with product teams. We have 2 panels that assist with this. So we have an ethics and equity advisory panel in the U.S. with U.S. Practitioners of racial equity, tech practitioners, people with lived experience, and we also have one in the UK. So they are like the panels that sit with product teams in addition to the work that we do, you know, on PRDs and other work with teams.
Yeah. Okay, I see the participation die down a little bit, but we have one last question. Again, we're putting on our thinking caps here. What measures could Axon take to increase transparency and accountability with this new product? And so one of the things I would say, in kind of setting some context, again, Axon is this company providing this technology. It's selling and deploying that to different police forces in the U.S. and around the globe, and then those products are used in all the communities in that which we live in. So Axon can do things at a high leverage in order to create that transparency and accountability. And so what do you all think would help increase it in this context?
Yeah, I saw some comments about making training mandatory. We don't have control over that, but we do provide training for every department that has a taser, change the mindset of the individuals who are using it, share analytics. Yes, the data part is a huge challenge, and we would love that as well. Rules set in place so people don't use it in a harmful way. So that's around laws and policies. Annual impact reports, so important. Yemi, you know that's important. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, happy to, real quickly. And just to let you all know, and please, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the things that Axon's doing now to help create a little bit more transparency is that if the police officer has our taser weapons as well as our body cameras, once they pull the taser weapon out of their holster, our cameras come on immediately and starts to record. And so what happens is not only on the person who pulled out the taser, but anyone within a certain feet of that proximity, that camera starts to record, and that data is controlled and moderated by us, right? So there's no opportunity for them to tamper with that. So I think that's one of the
But that's a feature. So that's like
feature.
an interesting thing we say, because
Yes.
communities sometimes demand it, and your community, your police department may not give it to you, but it is available.
Absolutely, and that's true. And again, you know, there are other products out there. Maybe they have a different body-worn camera to their tasers, right? So that's a very good point. The other thing is that we just launched a public safety gun database that captures, you know, deaths that are currently occurring within the number I gave you came from that database. And within that database, if you go on the website, you would also see if there was a presence of a taser weapon at the time that gun was used, right? If police officer has tasers, right? And so these are the things that we were trying to make sure we pay attention. So these are the things that I think are important when someone says having more data insight to see if Did the police choose to use a taser over this and things like that? So, yep, question.
You said that with the taser usage, there's an automatic feature with your body camera that if the taser is pulled, it starts recording.
It's also the gun as well, the
Okay,
holster.
but you said that that might not always be the case because they might not have your body camera.
So you know what? Axon is like Apple. You know you have an iPhone, so what computer do you have? Your laptop is a
Yeah.
Mac for sure if you have an iPhone, right? And so it's similar. We make body-worn cameras, we make tasers, we make a ton of software that runs departments on the federal side, internationally, everywhere. So if you have our body-worn camera, which you should, and we are in 99% of police forces in this country, and growing internationally, then you most likely have all of our stuff. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes you'll have Motorola, and so that won't be able to talk to our taser, which is also why people would most likely, if you have the taser, you're going to buy all Axon products. Yes. I love that question. Shannon, are you here? This is why we have partnerships, and Shannon is the director of on our team, and she handles all community partnerships, and I agree with you, and these are the conversations that we're having with community members. So Shannon, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Oftentimes when your agency or agencies around the country are adopting new technology, there's not a lot of transparency with the community on that. So our team really does try to work with national organizations so that they have the information that our law enforcement agencies are also receiving, because it's your taxpayer dollars. So you should know what features come with the technology that's used to protect you. But as I'm a former organizer, but if there are community organizers in here, that is a great thing to think about when it comes to public safety reform is these new technology adoptions. They're booming across the country. To really work with your city council and your public safety agency to know what options that you do have as a community, that you're aware of what is coming with the technology or not coming. And I think a lot of agencies sometimes aren't as willing to be transparent because there's a lot of scrutiny around budgets. But what we've learned is when a lot of folks are learning more about the technology, they're more open to spending the extra however much to get this level of transparency or accountability. So it's definitely something to think about, but your agency is not required to talk to you about it. And a lot of times they don't. And so we really try to nudge people to make sure you're having those conversations with your leaders.
We're going to have a Q&A right after this, so I gotta keep it moving. Sorry, but we'll go into deep into other questions. All right, last 3 minutes here. Okay, switching back to the slides. Okay. So again, just tying it back to all of our work. Again, you've seen this example today, learning about Axon, this taser, and the context in which these questions are really, really important. Depending on your industry or domain, they could be, there's a spectrum here of importance. But I think you might take away from this, well, like, this is weapons, like this is really intense. Like, can I really learn something here today? And again, I know everybody knows how to use Google. You can just look at all the different examples of products, innocent products in the market today that with the lack of asking these right questions early in the product life cycle, when you're in the design, when you're in the research phase, if you're designing YouTube Kids and you don't have kids really under consideration, you're not understanding those different boundaries, you might have a YouTube Kids that are showing videos that are inappropriate for them. And so I hope you're able to see, again, some of these questions that we're asking, which feeds into the next part here. I hope everybody can read this. But again, I was coming back to, there's different roles in that product development team. And if I focus on like engineers, designers, UX researchers, and then product managers, that's near and dear to my heart, there's these different questions that you should be asking. Again, the earlier in the product life cycle, the better, because that's where you can make the most effect on that change. So for engineers, again, we talked about the bad actor and misuse and abuse. Everybody, it's hot topic around AI. The dirty secret is, where's all the training data? What's the source of that training data? How did you collect that training data? And so if you're an engineer in the room and you're working on something related to AI, if you're not asking the questions around training data, then you're not gonna get the end result that you want, and you might have some bias in those resulting models. For the designers in the room, those different personal characteristics. It might be gender, it might be ethnicity, it might be country of origin. Like, what are the different impacts of those different characteristics of how people are going to use your product? Because it's probably going to look a little bit different than how you use the product itself. And then how do you go out and externally validate those assumptions as you go through those initial iterations? And then the last part here is for PMs in the room who are usually, ultimately responsible for that end result. I always like to ask the question again: when you're bringing a new product into a market, you want to understand that context. You want to understand: are you doing something, making something better or more efficient, while ensuring that you're at least meeting that baseline. You're at least meeting that baseline expectation that people have around that product or service in the market, and then also the different blind spots that you might have, and how are you assessing those different blind spots so that you can, when you launch the first iteration of your product, it's never going to be the perfect thing, but then that gives you more ideas of what you need to keep getting signal on and validating when you put out the subsequent versions. So these are some of the questions that, again, as Regina was saying, these are some of the questions that we're thinking about, at Axon, in order to make our products, equitable and inclusive at all stages of the product development. I think we're right at time, so maybe we close again with the moonshot. Back to Yemi.
Awesome. So with that being said, as you can imagine, the truth of the matter is that when I think about Axon and the people who develop these products, we have a ton of opportunity to have a lot more diverse perspective, thoughts, and every level of diversity. We have a ton of opportunities to do that. And so that's part of my job, is to make sure that we tell not only the story of why we're doing this, but we attract top talent like you all to Axon. So with that being said, we have a couple of our folks from TA here, and we're going to be at the booth. And so please stop by, and we'd love to hear from you, and it'll be great for you to check out some of our opportunities at Axon and see, if you can really tie. If this resonates with you, we would love to have you come join our company and again, help us do this really difficult work. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.